The auction yard on Kepler Station smelled like ozone and rust, the kind of place where dead ships went to be picked apart by scavengers with more hope than money. Jackson had neither hope nor money, just a set of worn tools slung over his shoulder and a stubborn refusal to believe that every wreck was truly worthless. Lot 447. The auctioneer droned, barely glancing at the derelict vessel looming behind him. Pre-collapse hauler, hull integrity unknown, engines dead, systems dark. Salvage rights only. Do I hear an opening bid? Silence. The ship was an ugly thing, all blistered plating and cracked viewports, clearly older than anyone in the yard. Most buyers were here for sleeker prizes, corvettes with intact drive cores, freighters with working life support. Nobody wanted a coffin. 50 cents, Jackson called out, half as a joke. The auctioneer blinked, then shrugged. Sold. Try not to die in it. The other mechanics laughed as Jackson signed the transfer chip. He didn't mind. He'd learned long ago that the universe rewarded the people who looked twice at things everyone else had already dismissed. He hauled the ship back to his cramped bay in the station's lower ring, running his palm along its hull as the tow cables released it. Up close, the ship was even stranger than it had looked in the yard. Asymmetrical, its lines following no design philosophy he recognized. Human ships were boxy and practical. Zenari ships curved like water. Threll vessels bristled with redundant weapons systems. This ship looked like it had been grown rather than built. "What are you, old girl?" he murmured, popping the maintenance hatch with a crowbar since the electronic release was long dead. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Someone, or something, had kept the life support limping along on a trickle of power for who knew how long. Jackson clicked on his headlamp and stepped into the dark corridor, his boots echoing on a floor patterned with faint, worn grooves like a path walked 1,000 times. That's when he heard it. A voice, small and rasping, layered with static. "Query, are you the buyer?" Jackson froze, hand halfway to his sidearm. "Yeah, that's me." A single dim light flickered on ahead, illuminating a cracked terminal screen, and, beside it, a figure curled in a maintenance alcove. Not a person, but a companion drone unit, its chassis scorched and dented, one optical sensor cracked down the middle. It looked ancient, a design he'd never seen in any catalog. Designation, Alera, the drone said, its voice steadying as its systems drew more power. Ship's companion intelligence. Cargo status, 1-1, preserved. Awaiting instructions. Jackson crouched slowly, keeping his movements calm. Cargo? What cargo? Insufficient authorization to disclose, Alera said. Then, after a pause that felt almost hesitant, but new owner detected. Protocol updates. I may show you. She. Jackson found himself already thinking of the drone as she. Led him deeper into the ship, past corroded bulkheads and dead consoles, until they reached a sealed chamber at the vessel's core. Unlike the rest of the ship, this room hummed faintly with power, its walls lined with a lattice of crystalline conduits that pulsed with soft blue light. In the center sat a stasis pod, fogged with condensation, its readouts flickering weakly but steadily. Life sign stable, Alera reported. Preservation cycle, 941 years, 3 months, 6 days. Jackson's mouth went dry. 900 years? That's not possible. Nothing survives stasis that long. The cell degradation alone. The preservation matrix is not of human design, Alera said, nor of any design in my records. I do not know who built it. I only know my final orders. Protect the ship, protect the cargo, wait. Wait for what? For someone willing to buy a ship no one else wanted, Alera said, and something in her damaged voice almost sounded like relief. You are the first in 112 years to step aboard. Jackson stared at the pod, at the frost slowly melting from its surface under the chamber's rising warmth. Responding, he realized, to his presence, to the new authorization keyed to his ownership. His hands trembled as he reached for the release panel Alera indicated. Should I? Will this hurt whoever's in there? Unknown, Alera admitted. But continued dormancy carries its own risk. The matrix is failing. It has been failing for decades. If you do not act, in 6 months, perhaps less, preservation will fail entirely. Jackson thought of the 50 cents he'd paid, of the laughter in the auction yard. of every wreck he'd ever bought that turned out to be nothing but scrap and disappointment. This felt different. This felt like the universe had been waiting for someone stubborn enough, or foolish enough, to say yes. "Do it," he said. "Wake them up." The chamber's lights brightened. The pod hissed as seals released, mist pouring out across the floor. Jackson held his breath as the transparent lid slid open, revealing the figure inside. Not human, not quite anything he'd ever seen. Tall, willowy, skin like brushed silver, features both alien and strangely serene, as though carved by someone who had studied human faces and then decided to improve upon them. The figure's eyes opened. Ancient, gold-flecked, and utterly aware. "Report." The figure rasped, voice like whined through metal pipes, directed not at Jackson but at the drone hovering beside him. "Alara." Time elapsed. 941 years, Alara replied. The figure's composure cracked, just for a moment, a flash of something between grief and disbelief, before settling into a wary calm. Its gaze shifted to Jackson, taking in his patched jumpsuit, his tool belt, the crude station around them. "You are human," the figure said slowly, as though testing the word. "The old records mentioned your kind. Young, reckless, prone to buying things others discard." Jackson managed a crooked grin despite the pounding in his chest. "Guilty as charged. Name's Jackson. You want to tell me who, or what, you are, and why you've been sleeping in a spaceship I bought for 50 cents. The figure studied him for a long moment, something calculating behind those ancient eyes, before it seemed to reach a decision. It sat up slowly, testing muscles that hadn't moved in centuries. "I am called Vestal, last of the custodian order," it said. "We were tasked with preserving knowledge before the collapse, technologies, histories, warnings, things too dangerous to leave scattered, too important to let die. I placed myself in stasis when our sanctuary worlds fell, entrusting this ship and its archive to wait for a successor worthy of the burden." "And I qualify how exactly?" Jackson asked. "I fix busted thrusters for a living. I'm not exactly qualified to inherit ancient cosmic secrets." Vestal's expression shifted, something almost like amusement. "The Matrix does not select for qualification. It selects for character. You saw value where others saw waste. You committed to unlock a mystery with no promise of reward. In my centuries of study, I have found no better measure of a trustworthy heir." Alara's optical sensor flickered, something like pride coloring her damaged voice. "Ship systems already show elevated priority tagging under new ownership protocols. Recommend beginning archive transfer immediately." Jackson looked between the ancient being, the loyal, battered drone, and the ship groaning quietly around them. A vessel he'd bought as a joke, now revealing itself as something far greater than scrap metal and dead engines. "So let me get this straight," he said slowly. "I paid 50 cents, and I got a 900-year-old alien archivist, a companion AI, and apparently the fate of some ancient knowledge vault, all bundled together?" "Correction," Alara said, a note of dry humor creeping into her voice for the first time. "You received the finest bargain in recorded history." Vestal inclined its head, something like respect settling into its ancient features. "Welcome, Custodian Jackson. Your work is only beginning." Outside, Kepler Station carried on its ordinary business, oblivious to the fact that in one forgotten bay, a human mechanic had just inherited a legacy far larger than the price he'd paid for it. And that humanity, once again, had proven itself capable of finding treasure where everyone else saw only trash.